Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another meeting. We got a couple things on store for us. We're going to be talking about base running a lot today. So make sure that you got your copy of rulebook. I like a highlighter and sticky notes. Those are my love languages as far as studying and goes. So ready, set, here we go. I start with this every single week just as a good mental refresher, kind of put us in the frame of mind. We always want to be learning from our opportunity. Always want to be learning. And so every situation that we have is an opportunity for improvement. Whether we feel like we've got every pitch right in a game, there's always something that we can get better from. And we learn from our experiences, and we also learn when we share those experiences with others. So whichever end of the spectrum that you're on, I'm glad that you're here, and I hopefully that you can find something that you can improve on. Last week when we were on here, well, I guess 2 weeks ago when we were on, we talked about timing plays, and I made a lovely little cry for everybody. Hey, if you have a 1-out timing play, send me a video link. And because I don't have one yet, well, guess what? We have example of a 1-out timing play now that happened in a game last week, and I wanted to start there real fast. So remember, when we have a 1-out timing play, this situation is where you have multiple runners on base. So there's at least 2 other runners on base plus the batter puts the ball in play. So we have to have at least a minimum of 3 runners moving in various places for a 1-out timing play. So let's take a look at this 1-out timing play and just talk through it briefly real quick. Here we go.
Here in the bottom of the first inning. And runner does go. Gatlin will ground that one to third base. Looks at third baseman back, and now run does score. Little base running blunder.
Before I get into any of the details of the play, I do want to point out that this is Jacob Bradshaw working the plate, and he communicated this timing play so clearly that even the announcer for the broadcast figured out what he was doing out. So great job, Jacob. Let's unpack this play real quick. So we have runners at first and third, and there's 1 out. So first and third situation, pre-pitch, if I'm the plate umpire, I'm signaling my partner, hey, 1 out, and I'm rotating to third, but we also have to think we could possibly have a 1-out timing play here. So I'm taking one finger and just pointing to my watch. That's my cycle for here. So 1 out, I got third base. Hey, we could possibly have a 1-out timing play. If I'm the base umpire, I'm going to mirror that the exact same way. Yeah, you're right. We got 1 out. I've got, first base. I've got batter runner rounding first. And yeah, we could have a 1-out timing play. So let's be mindful of that. Okay. We fast forward just a little bit. The runner, let me back up here.
First inning.
The runner is running with the pitch. So anytime you have a first and third situation and the runner takes off, hey, your little baseball feelers need to start going up because something funky could happen. In this case,
and runner does go. Gatlin will.
Third baseman looks the runner back to third very nicely.
Ground that one to third
and then
base.
Craziness happens right here. Our base umpire has no idea that R1 has turned around. Our base umpire is watching the throw go to first base, just like he should.
Look.
The out is recorded at first base, and now we think, oh my goodness, what on earth is happening? R1 is retreating back to first base, and the play is continuing to happen. So now we don't just have 1 out, now we have 2 outs, and there's secondary action still being played in the situation.
Back, and now
he gets in a rundown.
Run does.
The tag is applied. So I want to back up to this part right here. Look where Jacob is standing. Jacob actually didn't move on this play, and he didn't need to because everything happened right in front of him. He got to kind of where first base extended is, and he could see maybe swipe, tag, pulled foot, but you can't go anywhere because third base is occupied. What if that runner R3 just decides to sprint home? So he holds his ground, he's watching things, and he can line up the tag play from right where he is. He can line up the tag play out at second base and the runner touching the plate. And the runner does touch the plate right before the tag is made, which is why
run does score.
So great job by this crew on a 1-out timing play. Again, they're rare, but they do happen. So that's why just always be thinking, if you have 1 out and you have multiple runners on base, that could be the right formula to have a 1-out timing play. And of course, the more common one, a 2-out timing play, is anytime you have 1 runner plus the batter runner, or you could also have multiple runners on this one as well, but there's an extensive video that we did last time on this. So yay, we finally got a video for a 1-out timing play. All right, the next bulk of time that we're going to be spending with today is going to be on base running situations. Base running situations come in from us in Rule 8. Rule 8 starts on page 47, and if you have not spent a lot of time just diving in and reading this rule, this is a really, really deep rule. There's a lot of crazy things, a lot of funky worded statements, and it just takes a little bit of time to really soak in and let you understand all the details of it. So I got 3 situations for us today. So let's talk about the first one. Let's say that you have a runner and they pass another runner along the way. There is a rule for this. It's Rule 842, letter M on page 56. So let me go to my sticky note, page 56. Letter M down at the bottom. And this is titled, so you got to go all the way back to the previous page 54, because this is section 4, article 1. It says the batter runner, the article 2, any runner is out when the runner what? And now we go to letter M. Any runner is out when the runner passes an unobstructed preceding runner before such runner is out, including when they're awarding bases. So just like what I said, runner is out when he passes an unobstructed preceding runner before that runner is put out. And this could happen at any point in time during a game. You could have just guys that are not paying attention, like in that situation where R1 just decides to turn back and run the opposite direction. If the batter runner had rounded first base and they had crossed paths, well, then guess what? The batter runner would be out. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. So here's the situation. We have a runner at first base, and we have the batter runner hits a really high, deep fly ball to the outfield. It's so deep that R1 is kind of thinking about, maybe I'm going to tag on this. Can an R1 tag? Sure, he can. But we have the batter runner that is now about to round the base. Batter runner touches first base, and then he crosses path of R1, who is, sort of kind of by the base, but we have 2 runners passing, okay? Now, here's something with this real fast. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Here's something with this is that as soon as you see the runners cross, you're just going to point at and go, he's out. If the catch happens in the outfield and then he runs, well, then guess what? The catch happens, okay? But anytime that you see runners crossing, and if it's before the out is recorded, you need to point at it, you need to call it, and you need to get that out. And that's important because what happens if the outfielder drops the ball? Then you've already got these 2 runners that are crossed, and then you're like, oh my goodness, what do I do? So again, this says any runner is out, and it doesn't specify live ball or dead ball. So I'm going to assume, and I think this is how we should all do it, that it's just a live ball. It's something that you're going to point at and go, he crossed, he's out. And you're going to let things happen, which is why if the outfielder drops the ball, can all the others continue to run? Yeah, they can. They absolutely can, because it's still a live baseball. So again, this can happen at any time, but it's just really important that you remember that it's the furthest back, the runner that's actually doing the passing, that is the runner that's out. So if it's the batter runner crossing R1, it's the batter runner that's out. If R2 rounds third base and passes R3, it's R2 that's out. Whoever is doing the passing is the runner that's out, not the runner that got passed. So make sure that you can switch those inside your brain and really let this settle in. This happened in one of my games. Thankfully, the ball was caught nearly simultaneously as the batter runner rounded first base and crossed the runner. And it's going to come in and sneak up on you, and you're not going to, if you don't think about this, you're not going to be ready for it. So again, to wrap up on this one, if you see runners crossing each other, runners passing each other, you need to acknowledge it. You need to call it. You passed it, runners out, and get that out. So that way nothing else can happen and we don't have a bigger cluster because people get confused as to who's out. Okay. Next situation we're going to talk to you that has to do with base running. Let's talk about runners occupying the same base simultaneously. Oftentimes you'll see this where a fielder will go up and tag both runners and everybody's going, what are we doing? Well, hopefully you'll know what we're doing after this little section. This comes to us from Rule 8, Section 2, Letter 8, has been found on page 15. And again, another sticky note for me. And there's a bit more to this rule than you may think. So let's get started. Article 8. A runner acquires the right to the proper unoccupied base if the runner touches it before being put out. If he steps on the base and he's not put out, that base is entitled to him. Are we good so far? Okay, awesome. Next sentence, the runner is then entitled to this base until the runner is put out or until the runner legally touches the next base while it is unoccupied, or until a following runner is forced to advance. Okay, so let's take these three things real fast. A runner is entitled to the base that they are standing on as long as they've acquired it legally. Okay, hopefully that we can all assume and understand that fact really simply. Let's don't get too detailed with that. So a runner who is standing on the base is entitled to that base until these three things happen. If the runner is tagged out because he steps on, well, obviously he's not entitled to that base anymore, so it doesn't matter because the runner's out, okay? If the runner legally touches the next base and he's still not put out, well, that means that he is now legally entitled to that new base that he's acquired, not the base that he came from, okay? So that's really important to know as well, because if he was on second and he ran to third, he is now entitled to third base, no longer to second base. Obviously, because he's acquired the next base. And then the last one, this is where people get a little bit confused, is if he is forced to advance because of a following runner, a runner that's behind him. So for example, if he's on second base, if there's a runner at first base and he is forced to advance to second because the batter runner puts the ball in play, well, then that R2 is no longer entitled to second base anymore. Him standing on that base, as soon as he is forced to move, doesn't allow him any safety at all. We're going to talk about this here in just a little bit, and as plays get a little funky. So again, three things to remember. They are entitled to that base unless he's put out, unless he touches the next base, or if he's forced. So again, keeping with this little section, there's another section that we're going to read about here in just a second, but situation. Runners at second, third, R2, and R3. Let's just say R2 gets a steal sign and R3 forgets to do anything. So R2 takes off and is now standing on third base, and both runners are standing there simultaneously. There's no force play in play, and you get the third baseman who gets the baseball, he catches it, and he tags both runners. Question to you is, who is out? Somebody has to be out because two people can't be on the base. So let's read on in the little section A that's underneath this Article 8 together. It says, if two runners are on the same base at the same time and both are tagged, the following runner is declared out. So following meaning the runner behind. So in this scenario, R2 is the following runner. So in this situation, what's the answer? R2 is out. And as an umpire, if you are officiating this play, you need to make it very clear who you are calling out so somebody doesn't accidentally step off the base when they shouldn't. You need to point to the runner. You, which is the original runner at third base, save. You point to now R2, out. Some people could even go as far as, depending on how close you are, I've seen this at the major league level that they do. They'll actually tap them on the shoulder. You are safe. You are out. Now, in two-man umpiring system, you're not going to be that close. So that's not going to be a very practical thing. But maybe in the playoffs, maybe if we're working 3 or 4 man, maybe that could work for you. But you've got to make it so clear that you know, and they know, and the coaches know, and the fans know, and everybody knows who exactly that you're going to call out so you don't make it more confusing. Point to R3. You, safe. Start with the safe guy first so he knows not to move. You, out. And that way that it takes away the confusion. Okay, so again, important one to know on this is that when they're occupying the same base and there is not a force play, the following runner, the backside runner is out. Again, the one who made the base running mistake. That's the easy way to remember. Same thing what we talked about with the passing. Whoever made the base running mistake, base running infraction, that's the one that you're going to call out. Okay, we got another situation for us here. So let's talk about this one, R1, R2, and R3. So we've got the bases loaded, and let's just say no outs for fun measure. The batter bunts the ball. So we got a square around, puts the ball on the ground. R2 and R3 then are both standing on third. So again, maybe R3 thought, oh my goodness, I'm about to get put out because there's a bunt down, so I'm just going to stay put. R2 being smart, run there and standing on the base. The third baseman picks up the baseball and walks over to the base. And again, he's going to tag both runners. Who is out? Well, let's keep reading because this is in the rule book as well. So we're still in that little subsection A. We said if two runners are on the same base at the same time and both are tagged, on a forced play situation, the runner who is forced to advance shall be declared out when tagged on the base, or the base to which the runner is forced is touched by a fielder while in possession of the ball. I take that last tag because it's a little confusing. All it's saying is, in this case, if the third baseman goes over and touches home plate, then R3 is out. But that's common sense. That's how a forced play works to begin with. Yes, I know, but they still have to put it here for further clarification. Now let's talk about the first part of it. If two runners are on base at the same time, on a forced play situation, the runner who is forced to advance shall be declared out when tagged on the base. So who are the runners that is forced to advance? R2 is forced to advance. He moves to third base. He did his job. R3 is the one that's forced to advance. So in this situation, R3 is out. The runner originally standing on third base is out. Now, if you're the calling umpire on this one, again, you have to make it so obvious as to what you are doing. You're going to walk over to him and get really close, or as close as the play will allow, and you're going to point you to the trailing runner, R2, who is now on a third base, and you're going to point to him and call him safe. Always want to start with the safe. You, safe. Now you're going to point to R3, the runner who is originally on third, point to him, you're out. Is this backwards, completely backwards than what the previous situation was? Yes. There are two different situations, and the key is that knowing whether it's a force play or whether it's not a force play. And again, and it goes back to, let me go back to this screen real quick, because it goes back to these three things. That runner is entitled to the base until he touches the next base or until he is forced to advance. If we can remember those two things, just remember, he's protected on that base as long as he doesn't have to be, as long as he's not forced from it. As soon as the ball is put into play and it's a force play, we've got runners moving, he no longer is safe by standing on that base. That base basically vanishes to him. He can't do anything. Now, if the batter runner is put out, the force goes away. And then we go back to the previous thing. Now he's back to entitled to that base. So if there are two runners on, the force is out. So now we know how to officiate that way. So the key is knowing whether it's a force play or whether it's not a force play. Oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself. Yeah, here we go. So reason R3 is out. Reason is because it's a force play. R3 loses the right to the base as soon as the ball is put into play, and all runners are forced to advance. So we've got to remember on this one that if there's no force out and two runners are on there, it's the trailing runner, the runner that made the infraction, because he shouldn't have ran with a runner standing there. If there is a force out, if there's a force play in there, the lead runner is out. Again, it's whoever is making the base running mistake. The lead runner, he should have ran, so he's the one out. Okay, clear as mud on this one. I'm going to set this right here for a second. This would be a great opportunity if somebody's doing this to take a little screenshot of it, because if this hasn't happened in your games yet ever, guess what's probably going to happen this week or very soon in your near future. This will happen, and you will be thankful that you were able to have some sort of memory trick to remind yourself. I'll say it one more time. If two runners are occupying the same base and they're both tagged at the same time, you've got to think, is there a force play? If there is a force play, the lead runner is out because he was the one forced to leave that base, and he didn't. He made the base running infraction or base running mistake, and so he's out. If there is not a force play on this one, you need to get the trailing runner as the runner that's out. Why? Because he made the base running error. Somebody was already standing on that base, and he wasn't forced to advance. He's the one that made the mistake, so he's out. All right. Runners occupying the same base simultaneously. Fun stuff. Last one that has to talk about base running is a bit of a doozy, and it has to do with runners leaping or diving over a player. And when we think of base running, we do think of base running or base sliding, or maybe, tag dodging a little bit within the, confines of not going outside the baseline and yada, yada, yada. That's another video for another day. But there is a place in the rulebook that talks about leaping and jumping and hurdling and diving, that, again, when the game matters and something like this happens, it can be the difference between getting a play right, getting a play wrong. It could be the difference between the correct team winning and the incorrect team winning. So let's jump in with this. There's a lot to this rule, and we got some more discussion. So again, we're still in Rule 8. We're still in Article 4, or Section 4 rather, sorry, on page 55 now. It's mentioned in two different places, 2B and then 2D as well. So let's go there and let's get started reading. Article 2 says, any runner is out when the runner ... Scrolls down to B2. It says, runners are never required to slide. Pause for a second. If anybody hollers at you from the dugout and says he has to slide, guess what? They're wrong. In this rule book, now other rule books say different things. In this rule book for high school baseball, it says right here, runners are never required to slide. Okay, let's keep going. That's another conversation for another day. Runners are never required to slide, but if a runner does elect to slide, the slide must be legal. Great, cool, and it gives us two rule references for what a legal slide is. We can talk about that later. Here we go. Jumping, hurdling, and leaping are all legal attempts to avoid a fielder as long as the fielder is lying on the ground. Diving over a fielder is illegal. What is the penalty for this? The runner is out, interference is called, and the ball is dead immediately. On a forced play slide with less than 2 outs, but that doesn't matter to us, blah, blah, blah. Next sentence. Runners shall return to the bases occupied at the time of pitch. With 2 outs, the runner is declared out. The batter is credited with the fielder's choice. Yeah, that's just for our information if we're ever caught about scoring. Okay, so let's go down just a few little points and let's go to letter D. And again, it says any runner is out when the runner dives over a fielder. And the penalty for this one is the runner is out and the ball remains live unless interference occurs and is declared. Okay, so I feel like we maybe have kind of contradicted ourselves a little bit with these two statements. So let's backtrack just a little bit and reiterate these things. Again, runners are never required to slide, period. They are never required to slide. Now, if they choose to not slide and they interfere, great, we have interference. If they choose to not slide and they cause malicious contact, great, we have a rule for that. But they are never required to slide. There's nothing that says in this play they have to get down and slide, okay? Jumping, hurdling, and leaping are all legal if, one condition, if the defense is lying on the ground. What do I mean by lying on the ground? I mean like belly, knees, legs are all laying on the ground this way, or butt, back, and heels are laying on the ground this way. Has that ever, can that happen on a baseball diamond? Absolutely. Does it happen often? No. But again, crazy things happen, which is why we have crazy rules like this. Here's the trick though. Diving is never legal. If they take a head first and they are launching over anything, head first over anything, that is automatically illegal. Automatically, boom, instantly. Now we'll get into what you call next in just a little bit, but that's a really easy way to think. So remember, diving is never legal. Jumping, hurdling, or leaping are legal as long as the defense is lying on the ground. Okay, so same thing as we did before. We got a couple situations on task. So here we go. R2, runner at second, is caught in a rundown between second and third. So he had a really big lead, pitcher picks off, and he's taken off to third base, he's running towards third base. F5, the third baseman, is throwing the ball, and he catches it on a knee. So think, he's catching the ball low to the ground, but he is on one knee, and he's still upright. So almost like a catcher squat, sort of, kind of, if you can picture it this way. R2, seeing that he's down and knowing that he's got a 4-foot high jump just because he competed at the track meet earlier in the day, he decides that he is going to leap over the third baseman and to get to third base. So what do we have in this situation? The ruling is, by rule, this is interference because he did not legally avoid the tag. That's where this is. He is interfering with the play. So this is interference. So you're going to call time immediately. Time. You're going to signal that's interference. That's really important because that tells us that other things are going to come out. R2 is going to be called out. And if there are any other runners on base at the time, I didn't specify in this situation, if there are any other runners, they have to return to the base that they were at time of pitch. And that's the part that I feel like in this rule that we're really going to miss, is that this is not just calling some other infraction. This is actually calling interference. If you're calling a runner who is leaping, diving, leaping or jumping or hurdling over a fielder that's not on the ground, you're actually calling interference. And interference has other parts to it, okay? So again, you're going to call time, and you're going to signal that's interference, and he's going to say he's out. And if any other runners are advancing, they've got to go back to where they are at the time of pitch. I think this is the easiest one of the bunch. Hopefully that we can kind of picture this one happening in our brain. Also to know is if in R2's attempt to leap, if he kicks the third baseman in the head, that very easily could be malicious contact. We could be calling time. We could be calling that's interference, putting everybody back and ejecting him for malicious contact. So malicious contact will always supersede everything else. Like I said again, malicious contact will always supersede anything else that's going on a baseball field. So that is leaping or jumping over a fielder that's not lying on the ground. That's interference. Let's go to another situation. R3 is running home on a passed ball. So we got a runner at third base. Pitcher throws the ball on the dirt, goes to the backstop. R3 takes off. The pitcher's coming to the plate. The catcher grabs the ball and throws it. The pitcher who is covering dives to catch the throw. It's a bad throw, and the pitcher's trying to, make an all-star Sports Center's top 10 play, and he dives forward and catches the ball. And as he does so, he is laying on the ground. He is laying so that way his belly and his thighs and his chest, he is obviously laying on the ground as if he just completed a head first dive. R3 comes over and hurdles over the pitcher and touches the plate. In this situation, I hopefully that there's been enough buildup and understanding that in this situation, this is perfectly legal. F1, the pitcher was lying flat on the ground and he hurdles, so think 2 feet jumping over. Another way you could say it is he leaped over him, okay? That would also be legal. But again, we're talking keeping the runner upright and keeping him feet to the ground. Feet to the ground. Let me say that again. Feet to the ground. That's an important play on this one because that's going to distinguish between a jump or a hurdle or a leap as opposed to what we are going to talk about next. Speaking about talking about next, here we go. Another situation. Wow, one word changed. R3 is running home on a passed ball. The pitcher is covering the plate, and he dives to catch the throw from the player. And he dives to catch the throw from the catcher, and he's laying on the ground with his chest, with his legs, all on the ground as if he just slid face first. He actually dove forward. He is lying flat on the ground. But this time, R3 decides to dive over the pitcher. Okay, so a dive would be something head first. Feet no longer are on the bottom. Head first would be like this. Okay, something head first, not feet first. I hope I'm so bad that I don't have a video to show you with this, but a jump, a hurdle, all of this, your body is going to be upright. All right. A dive is your body is going to be horizontal. All right. And again, yet again, hopefully enough of this has built up and this says this is illegal. The runner is out. But is it interference? And this is where I think some of our discussion really needs to go and to kind of think, because there are really two different rulings on this. There are two different rulings on this, that if a runner, it says here in letter D, is if he dives over a fielder, the runner is out, but the ball remains alive and in play. Let me get all this up there. If there's not interference, then the ball remains alive and in play. If there is interference, then the ball is dead immediately, the runner is out, and all the other runners return to the time of pitch. This could be a huge discrepancy. One thought over a player diving, okay, we all agree he's out. But whether you choose to call it interference or whether you choose to call it just a dive, that could have huge implications to a play. Let's say that the bases are loaded, okay? Bases are loaded and the ball is hit to the wall, all right? R1 comes around to score, but R1 is the one that dives over. If you're going to call interference, well, guess what? You're going to call R1 out, and then all the other runners have to go back to their base that they were at time of pitch because you're going to call interference. That's interference. Is a coach going to be happy with this? No. But on the other side, if you don't call it interference, say you're just going to call it a dive, well, he dove over the player, and then guess what? The ball remains live in play, and those two runs do count. So this one little disclaimer on a dive over a fielder is huge. It can have huge implications. And interference is a judgment call. I can't tell you judgment. You as the umpire, you've got to have your own judgment, okay? But I can give you a little hint. If there's contact as the runner is diving over the fielder, you need to call interference. If there is no contact, I think you may be able to get away with not calling interference. So I think that's our key. If you're going to call a runner out for diving, which he has to be called out, if he makes contact with the fielder that he dove over, I think you need to call interference. Player safety, I think, is on the front of all of this, just to make sure that we're thinking of the player that's on the ground, or maybe not on the ground, is just maybe standing up. If the runner makes contact, we need to call interference. If there is no contact and there's a dive, then well, he just may be really good at diving and just got a very spectacular looking out, and we'll let the play go. Let me see what's on the next. Okay, so just to recap with all this, a runner can jump, hurdle, or leap over a fielder that's lying on the ground. That's legal. If he leaps, jumps, or hurdles over a fielder that's not on the ground, that's interference. That's interference. Time. Ball's dead immediately. That's interference. He's out, and you're going to return all the runners at where they were at the time of pitch. If a runner dives over a fielder, again, leaping, hurdling, or jumping, your feet, these are your feet, your feet are to the ground. If you are diving over a player, your body's going to be horizontal. Diving is never legal. It is never legal. You're always going to call him out 100% of the time, no matter what. My rule of thumb, if he makes contact with the player he's diving over, you need to call interference. And just like we said, you're going to call time, that's interference, runner's out, and you're going to put all the other runners back where they are time of pitch. If he doesn't make contact, he dives over him successfully, you're still going to call him out, but the ball remains alive in play. So hopefully that's cleared this. I got one thing in the chat. Let me see. What happens to the batter if there is interference? Well, if the runner being called out is, if the batter hasn't put the ball in play and the runner is called out for interference, everybody just goes back to where time of pitch. And if there's a pitch thrown, the batter just stays there where he is. Okay. If the batter hits the ball if the batter hits the ball, say that he got a double, like, okay, so let's go back to the bases loaded situation that we used just briefly a while ago. Bases loaded, batter hits the ball to the wall. He's going to get a bases clearing double. So he's standing on second base, okay? He's standing on second base. Now, R1 is the one that's hurdled over. So he comes around to score and he dives over a player, but he makes contact. So we're going to call interference on this play, okay? So you're going to go time, that's interference, and you're going to call him out. But here's the tricky part. The batter runner has obtained second base. You can't tell the batter runner to go back to first base, all right? So this qualifies under the forced section of awarding bases, basically, is that R3, who was originally on third base, he has to score because R2 went to second. R2, who was on second base, gets placed back at third base because R1 was out. So that's the furthest back that he can go. So the batter runner would get to keep his double because he did nothing wrong. He would get to keep his double. He would be on second base. R2 would be on third base. One run would score and R1 would be out. So you can't penalize a batter for something that he didn't do in that situation, but you can return other runners as far back as they could be up to where they were forced to advance. So hopefully that clears that up. Whew, lots of talking. Last one is still about base running, but it's about courtesy runners. And this was just brought to my attention really much in my game last night. I had 2 different varsity games last night, and in both varsity games, I had head coaches, when they were offering for courtesy runners, they would holler at me, 12 for 4, 12 for 4, 12 for 4. And I would have to look at them and I would ask them, pitcher or catcher. So it's just always good for us to remind ourselves about these courtesy runners. Now, if you're looking in the, rule 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the rule book, you're not going to find it. There's nothing in the actual rule book per se that talks about courtesy runners, but it is in the optional speed up rules section, which is on page 66. So go back to these, go back in your rule book, page 66. And it is also noted that says suggested speed up rules. And the part underneath it says by state association adoption, any, all, or any part of these suggested speed up rules may be used. So for Texas, for us, we have, option to use these rules in their entirety. Okay, so these are the rules that we have. So I'm not going to read everything because I did a video on courtesy runners last year that you can go back and read and follow along all of the big details of it and everything. But here is just the short and sweet synopsis. Runners run for the position of pitcher or catcher, not the player. So if a coach hollers out, 4 for 24, 4 for 24, you need to figure out, is 24 the pitcher or the catcher? All right. And then on your lineup card, you need to mark it as 4 for the pitcher. Because once number 4 has ran for the pitcher, he now can only run for the pitcher. He can't run for the catcher. They can't switch. 4 is locked in to running for the pitcher. So who can be a courtesy runner? Well, you have to be a legal sub first, meaning you have not entered the game or are currently entering the game. So any of the original legal subs on the roster can be a courtesy runner. And as I said, you cannot run for both. Once you enter as a courtesy runner for the pitcher, you are going to be a courtesy runner for the pitcher for the entire game. Nothing of that can change, all right? And then also, if you cannot enter the game in the same inning that you courtesy ran. So example of this would be, let's say 4 is running for the pitcher, all right? So the pitcher is the first batter of the inning. The pitcher gets on base. And Tom, you're going to do a courtesy run. So great. 4 is in the game. He comes around and scores. There's several batters later. You got a big spot in the lineup, and coach wants to pinch hit. Coach wants to pinch hit number 4 in the game. They're still in the same half inning. You're going to have to tell him, stop. You can't do that. He already courtesy ran. Is this an easy one to forget? Is this an easy one to overlook? Yes, it is. But it's still the rule, so we need to be mindful of where that is. And that's it on courtesy runners review today. Again, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because, like I said, we've done this video in a separate one that's got a lot of details. But just don't forget, you've got to run for the position, pitcher or catcher, not the player, not the player. So when a coach hollers at 12 for 4, 12 for 4, you've got to ask him to clarify, is he the pitcher or catcher? Or hopefully if you know already. Hey, let me piggyback one more thing on this, because this is a really good way for you to look cool and look like you're in charge of the game. So hopefully you know who your pitcher and catcher is by about maybe the second or third, inning. Okay, so let's just use the catcher for an example here. Your catcher is up at the bat, and he gets a nice single, up the middle. All right, so he's standing on first base. A really good proactive plate umpire, knowing that your catcher just got on first base, is either one, start looking for a courtesy runner because they're likely going to make the change, or two, ask the coach, hey coach, are we going to run for him? And when you do that, it speeds up the situation. You're proactive. You have the appearance of that you're on top of things, that you're seeing the game, you know how it works, and it just makes you look good. And you also may help the coach remind him, oh wait, I could use a courtesy runner here. And it could work out for everybody's benefit. Okay. Woo. 45 minutes of talking, and here we go. What are your questions? This is the time of year where coaches are a bit animated, maybe more animated than earlier in the season. First round of district probably is finished or is in the process of finishing up. We're starting the second round of district. Standings are really starting to settle or get clustered. And these games matter with, just a handful of weeks left of the regular season. So I want to open it up for a few questions. If you can unmute yourself, ask your question, and we'll see where we are.
Okay, I'll go.
Awesome.
In the game last night, infield fly situation, batter hits a little bloop to the first baseman, maybe 15, 18 feet in the air. Neither my partner, I had the bases, neither one of us thought it was an infield fly. The coach, who's first baseman, the first baseman managed to drop the ball, and he was upset it wasn't called an infield fly. But again, neither one of us thought it was high enough. I think I've asked this question before, but my gosh, do we have a number? Do we have a height? But when it becomes an infield fly?
Well, I certainly would not want to get into a actual measuring match as to, oh, nope, the limit was 15 feet. This fly ball was 14 feet, 11 3/4 inches. So I think the basic question that you need to ask yourself is, number one, is this a line drive? And if it's not a line drive, then what's the other option?
Fly ball.
No? Yeah, the only other option is a fly ball. So by process of elimination, by process of elimination, you're going to have yourself with a fly ball. I think, generally speaking, if the ball goes higher than, I don't know, maybe two players standing on top of each other, well, I don't know, maybe 12 feet. Again, here I am with the numbers. Again, I don't want to get into a numbers game. But if the ball goes higher than that, then you're going to have a line drive. Sorry, if it goes below that, then you're going to have a line drive. If you have anything higher than that, you're going to have a fly ball. Also, I think your first baseman's actions are going to tell you where they are. If he is able to move and kind of camp under it, and the ball is coming at a downward angle towards him, I think you really could have a fly ball. If the ball is coming at him and it's more horizontal, then you have a line drive. Again, all of these are very ambiguous answers to a great question, to a great thought. But here's the other side. I like outs. If he was able to get underneath the baseball and wait on the ball to come down, and he was able to get there with ordinary effort, then I think you need to call an infield fly. If he's hustling over there and making the catch on the run, and, maybe he's catching it, kind of at his chest like this, with the balls coming at you, I think that you need to go with a line drive and not an infield fly. Does that answer your question at all? It's okay to say no. Let me put it to you this way. If a player catches the ball in front of them like this, sorry, you can't see me very well on my camera. If the player catches the ball in front of them like this or at their head or down, something like that, that's a line drive. If a player catches the ball, with their glove up like this, that's a fly ball. I think let the player's options or let the player and how they receive the ball be your determining factor. Just another thought. Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I got a question.
Okay.
When you were talking about the who has the right to the base, no, sorry. When you were talking about the interference stuff, you kept saying that when interference occurs, everybody has to go back to the base they were when the pitch was delivered or
Time of pitch, yes.
pitch. So if there's been a hit, does the batter have to bat again? If the interference, okay, that's where I was confused.
So that's that's where we have the question in the chat. So the batter gets to have whatever he has.
Okay. Just
ball
wanted
is
to double
pitched.
check.
If the batter gets a single, the batter's going to be on first base. If batter gets a triple, he's going to be on third base, and they just got lucky. Okay. But yeah, so the batter gets whatever he hit.
Cool. Thank you.
You bet.
So I was base umpire. I was in B. Runner at first. Base hit to left center. Runner
Hold
one.
on. All right, tell me again.
Ball hit to left center.
Okay.
I knew for sure he was scoring. Runner one was scoring, and the batter runner. I heard coach yelling, "You're going three, going three, going three." So I had myself all the way set up by third base. The inside of the bat. If there was an umpire in D, where he would have been to make the call, is that good or bad?
Okay, you broke up a little bit. So R1 is scoring, the batter runner is coming around. There's going to be a play at third base, and you're wondering where to take this play at third. Is that right?
Well, I'm saying I took the play of where an umpire would be at if he was the D umpire.
So like you got outside the base and looked at it here?
Yes, but I didn't move there until after the cutoff man threw the ball.
In two-man umpiring that's incorrect. In three-man or four-man, that's a great spot to be in. That's exactly where you want you to be. But here's why. What happens if the batter runner just decide? Well, there's a lot of stuff on my screen. Here we go. Let's erase R1. If the batter runner right here decides to stop and go back to second base, he's allowed to do that. He's able to do that. And if you're standing right here, well, you just really have shot yourself in the foot because you can't go there. So a rule that whenever you get on the outside of a play, and this is, for a play at third or even taking a play on the outside of second base is, and we'll talk about this in 2 weeks when we do 3 and 4 man.
Unless you're the home plate
if you have an umpire at the base ahead of you and an umpire at the base behind you, you can be on the outside of the play. Because when you're on the outside, you are saying that I am only looking at this base right here. I'm not looking at anything else, and no other play can happen to me. And in the two umpire situation, two umpires mechanic, that's just is unrealistic. That's not going to happen. So where should you take it? This play, especially if the throw's coming from left center field, your tag is going to be into this corner right here, the base. You want to be in the dirt grass cutout right there, looking in the wedge, looking right there into the base. Wow, my little finger doesn't work very well, but
yeah,
that's where you want to be looking at. Okay.
Yep.
Great thoughts. What else?
Is there a rule about throwing the bat
There is.
Okay. I hadn't found it. I got hit with the bat and catcher got hit with the bat. And so,
Rule 7 is batting.
okay.
Let me see how fast I can. Batting infraction. A batter, section 3, a batter shall not. I actually saw this just the other day.
Okay. I'm home now, so I could go get my book. Seven three. Batting
Well, I
infraction.
just look in there and I knew I should have marked it whenever I read it.
Yeah, I didn't see it, so that's what I was wondering. I figure it's got to be hiding somewhere. Or I felt it might be malicious, or because malicious usually means it's intentional.
And if I remember right, that's what it is that nothing happens unless you feel like the batter did it on purpose,
Okay.
in which you eject him.
Okay. Yeah. No, some of them are just stupid.
Yeah, you're not going to call him out for throwing the bat.
Right.
Let me spend some more time not on video looking for this because I feel like I look weird on video when I'm reading.
Okay. It's probably under malicious under 8.4 or something, so I'll just have to look again. But I just wondered because I didn't figure I'd have it at the varsity level, but we did, and I thought it was kind of funny.
Yep, I'll keep looking for it. All right, got time
Okay.
for maybe 1 or 2 more. All right. Well, sounds like we're going to end a little bit earlier. I hope that you'll have a great week of umpiring and work together with each other. I hope that throughout this season that you really have had the opportunity to get into your rule book and learn some rules better, whether you've been on with us live or whether you've been catching the replays on YouTube, and just studying. The whole point behind all these is just that we get better at reading the rules. We get better at calling things the right way, because it does make a difference. It makes a difference to the players. And it makes a difference. And the outcome of the game is that we got to know what the rules are. So you guys know how to reach me if you ever need anything. If you ever have any questions or comments or concerns, please feel free to reach out. Other than that, hope everybody has a great evening.
Caleb.